Halloween may be several months from now, but if you're like me, it's never too early to start planning your next costume. If you're a cosplayer, you have even more chances to dress up. Two of the most problematic issues many people face with costuming are selection and budget. Large retail chains and seasonal pop-up stores carry a wide range of costumes, but between the ridiculous sexy versions of everything and the overall poor quality of some of the materials, there's much to be desired. Of course, you could spring for a really high-quality costume, but then you'd end up spending a large chunk of your salary on something you may only wear once. Every year I try to bypass some of these issues by challenging myself to create a costume that is almost completely homemade for the least amount of money I can pay. Now, I don't sew, and while my skills are gaining momentum, I'm not ready for the cosplay circles just yet. That said, let me share with you some of my thriftiest costumes. These were costumes cobbled together out of very little, but still pulled off the look I wanted. I'm a huge Charlie Chaplin fan, and I'm also a big fan of wearing costumes of a different gender. I have very little time to pull off my Chaplin look and even less of a budget, so I did the easy part first. I found some men's pants and dress shoes that were both a little large on me to accentuate the little tramp signature walk. Found a black sport coat, a white button-up dress shirt, and suspenders. I then found a very basic short black wig. I was not able to get an actual bowler hat, but I did have access to a plastic hat in that shape, so I just spray painted it black. I did white face paint and a black crayon for the mustache and eyebrows, then topped it off with a cane. So I did Sally back in high school when my budget was even smaller than it is now. I had a Halloween party at my house, and a tall, lanky friend of mine played Jack, and it was perfect. There's Sally costumes everywhere, but I've never been too thrilled with the look of them. They always seem to get her hair wrong. Now, this is a subject of a little bit of debate, but the costumes usually have a Raggedy Ann style wig of red yarn, except it's long. If you actually look at Sally's hair in the film, it has more of a mauve or purple tinge because of the dark atmosphere of the whole movie, and it's a lot more unkempt. So when I did Sally, I used a long, dark purple wig that was, in my opinion, closer to the correct color. And since I couldn't sew, I simply glued patches of fabric onto a short dress, and it didn't have to be perfect because Sally is a disheveled patchwork rag doll in Halloween Town. Painted my face white, and I drew stitches on the corner of my mouth and down my neck. And finally, I took 2 pairs of white pantyhose, one for my legs and another to cut into sleeves. I drew stitches on those with a black Sharpie, and I was done.
Okay, you cunts. Let's see what you can do now. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
So I pretty much knew from the moment I saw Kick-Ass that I would have to be Hit Girl for Halloween at some point. Her costume was actually pretty easy to put together. The only challenge was the utility belt, which I'll get to in just a minute. I borrowed a purple wig from a friend, which meant I didn't have to pay for it, which was wonderful. I took a long sleeve dark purple thermal shirt. I found a purple plaid skirt at a thrift store. I found some purple tights, some black boots, and the cape I actually just made out of a plastic black tablecloth that I used once. The mask, I took a regular old black mask from Halloween store and cut it to fit the shape of Hit Girl's mask. Now, I mentioned before that the utility belt was a little bit tricky, but once I figured out how to do it, it actually ended up being one of my favorite projects. I found just a regular belt, and I took some pink duct tape, put it around the belt. For the buckle, I just took a round piece of cardboard, I put it over the actual buckle, and then duct taped it down, and then put the HG on there. The hardest part was finding the little weapons to put in there. My husband actually owns a butterfly knife, which she uses in the movie, which I added. I ended up carrying that and not putting it in the belt because I didn't want it to get messed up. I actually went to find one of those cheap little toy sets that children get. It's got like a small gun. This one had a fire hydrant because it was some kind of fire thing. It had a badge in it. And I had a few other things. So I took the little tiny fire hydrant, I put duct tape on it, and I made it into a little grenade. And I stuck that on the utility belt with the duct tape. And I basically just found as many pieces of that as I could, just the little play sets. that didn't have to be used again. They were just cheap plastic. And I made them look like grenades and little weapons and things like that. And I just loaded up the utility belt. And it ended up being just really, really cool.
Frozen hopes, thrift store coats, they don't cost a thing if you're broke.
Do you want to know what I find so amazing about the internet?
You're my hero.